Hey, Shannon.
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, you're looking forward to a little bit of a breakout sesh?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
No, that's really, really good. I mean, we'll hopefully have some people coming in after the session on the main stage finishes, which would be good. And we can hopefully have some people come in, have a chat to us. And I mean, as far as how we want to do it, you guys sent through some seeding questions, which is really good. Hopefully a few people will be in here and ask some questions too. But I really wanted to just give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about Skubana. We can use those seeding questions to have a chat about Skubana. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Skubana at the start, if that's cool.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That
perfect.
sounds good.
Nice one. Yeah, hopefully some people will join and switch their cameras on and kind of get involved. We don't know necessarily what the appetite will be for that. It's kind of early in the conference today. Hopefully we get
Yeah,
some chat, but you never know. And in the end, it's being recorded anyway. So, we've
cool.
got, it's well worth covering everything off anyway. Have you had a nice start to the day? What time is it where you are?
It's just 9:30 in the morning, so not too far into the day. So
Sure. Nice one.
yeah,
Nice one. I was
yeah.
having a look at your LinkedIn, of course, beforehand. It was a lot of horse training stuff.
Oh yeah,
That's super
yeah.
interesting.
It's really cold here right now. So I
Ah,
was out breaking ice this morning. We're at, gosh, I don't know, maybe 9 degrees right
oh.
now, and so yeah, it's cold. So it's always
Yeah,
fun. Hopefully we're gonna get back into normal temperatures here soon.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I almost forgot what normal temperatures are like in the winter. I'm from Melbourne, Australia originally, so I've been in London for
Oh
about
yeah,
So I've been in London for about 7 years, and the winters don't ever get any easier. They are still
yeah,
like, oh my goodness, why is it so dark all day? And
yes,
like, how can it be? I can't even remember leaving work with the sun up. I've forgotten what that is like. And then when it rolls back
yes.
around again, I'm like, oh, this is a dream. How could I ever leave when it was
I know.
dark? Yeah.
Yep. Winter solstice is like my favorite day. I'm like, okay, we get more sun now.
Yeah, it's only up from here, right?
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, it is so like that. It's funny. It does make me like, there is a coziness to it though that I feel like I never got, earlier in my life. Like, they're kind of like, what is all this? Even like Christmas music, I was like, what are all these carols around like being cozy and all that kind of stuff. And then I moved to Europe and I was like, oh, I get it now. This all makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's
Yeah.
hilarious. It's hilarious. Did you have a chance to tune into the sessions before this one, or the main stage?
I unfortunately I did not. I was planning on it, but I had some things come up that I wasn't
Of
able to do
course,
it. So I
of course.
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, no worries at all. No worries at all. Going to give us a couple of minutes to have them finish up on the main stage, and then we can go from there. I think we've got some people coming in now. So welcome to the people who are coming in. We're just going to give it 2 more minutes. I'm Zach from LoyaltyLion. I'm a marketing ops lead here. And we have Shannon Sharpe from Skubana as well. Do you want to give us a little bit about you, Shannon?
Sure. I'm Shannon with Skubana. I'm an account executive with the team and just represent the sales team essentially. And Skubana is an operations platform that helps with omnichannel sellers expand across multi-channel, multi-fulfillment platforms to just kind of expand across the market and keep their inventory managed and things like that. So nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on this in this breakout session today. To everybody who's watching, feel free. We've got up to 20 slots as well for people to turn their cameras on, turn your audio on if you want to jump into more of a conversation, or if you're not quite ready to turn the camera on. I know it's early in some places, so feel free to just pop some messages in the chat, or you can use the Q&A function as well. Keep an eye on those as well, so if anything comes up there. But I thought, just to kick us off, Shannon, maybe we could have a quick chat just to kind of follow along from the conversation that was happening on the main stage. Could you tell us a little bit about how Skubana solves the really common challenges that brands who struggle with omnichannel, especially around inventory management, data management across different channels, how does Skubana help with that?
So essentially our goal is to really unify, across your channels. So basically one single source of truth for your order management, supply chain, back office operations. So basically we're like the data source of truth, inventory, and everything of that nature. Really essentially to automate and grow your business. Essentially today, especially with supply chain issues and things of that nature, we really want to make sure that everything is accurate and that kind of where to go for that source of truth so that you can keep growing the business, but also be accurate for customer feedback and things like that. So that's really kind of what it is. So we're multi-channel, multi-fulfillment, and then we specialize really in order management, and then the purchase order piece of the business. So we don't want over ordering or under ordering for the company so that they can continue to scale. So kind of all of that goes back to like customer satisfaction in that space, as well as like keeping that business scaling.
Sure, thank you. I mean, what kind of going along that single point of truth idea, being a marketing ops guy myself, like whenever I hear single point of truth, I'm like, yes, more of that, please. Like, I just want to be able to go to one place, especially if I'm, I've got omnichannel marketing campaigns, omnichannel fulfillment, I'm selling through multiple places, but my customers don't think of, or merchants' customers don't think of it that way, right? They think of the brand and the merchant, and they expect the merchant to have all of the information, regardless of what channel that as a customer they're walking through. There's nothing worse as a customer being like, well, I interacted over here in this channel, and then 3 months later I've come through a different channel. But it seems like those two experiences aren't necessarily connected, or you don't have my order, even though I know I came through a different channel, but you must have that history somewhere, or you must know who I am. And I've given you information. Do you see these kinds of challenges coming up all the time for prospective customers or merchants that you work with?
Yes, I do. I think that, mainly it's like related to out of stock issues where, they're overselling or they're not performing to the level that that they need to be for their clients. So really, I don't think, I think on the reverse side of of the issue is because supply chain demands are so strong right now, clients, their customers aren't not willing to wait for products, and as long as they know when it's going to come, as far as like the communication between client customer, we're good, right? So as long as we know the feedback to the customer when we have that communication, we're fine. So as long as like Skubana can kind of say, hey, yeah, that order's sitting at 3PL ABC, that order's sitting on our warehouse, whatever. But yes, to your point, we do hear that a lot. And like with the tools that we can have in place with a tech stack approach, a best in breed tech stack approach, then as long as we can communicate that to the customers, our brand's customers, then we're good to go.
Yeah, it's a funny situation we find ourselves in, right? That as merchants and customers, the table stakes are a little bit higher now for all e-commerce merchants. There's an expectation, having gone through, well, still going through a pandemic, but a lot of brands going D2C and way more customers coming online into e-commerce. Their expectation from every merchant is pretty much like, well, I expect to know exactly where my order is, down to the 3 meters squared or 3 feet squared, essentially. Like, I want to know it's arriving right away. I want to know where it is. I want to be able to track everything about it. I want a really seamless experience across channels. And I want to be able to get it now. And now we're faced with, well, just recently and probably for a little bit further, we've got supply chain issues globally. And so we've got brands who have that, there's intent in the market from their customers, but they're not able to fulfill that. We've got a question in the chat here. How have you seen retailers adapting to the shipping and fulfillment challenges of the last year, or even the last few months, especially over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, into Christmas, and now in the new year?
That's a great question. So really, there have been some amazing tools developed that have partnered again with our platform specifically for supply chain, communicating with the vendors to then be able to communicate with the customers, and really just be transparent. I think that's the biggest thing right now, is just transparency. As long as we have feedback and there's a good feedback loop and everybody's communicating with everybody, then we're good to go. I think people have to understand patience and in this kind of new world that we're living in, but everything still has to be fast and clean and crisp, right? So it's like kind of an oxymoron, but we're still doing the best we can, you know?
Yeah,
So,
you want to transparently be able to tell your customers that everything is great and fine, but then there are some circumstances where, I mean, is it? I know merchants that will be difficult for them though sometimes to be transparent. Is it about the timing of that transparency? Is it making sure that all the information that's kind of available? Should you make more information available to your customers then in those circumstances?
I think as much as possible for sure. And if it's going to take, you know, and that way, I think that again, the long and short of that is, as long as the client knows how long it's going to take or whatnot, then they can make a decision, right? Maybe they don't want to wait for an extended period of time to receive their item. You know, maybe they do. But as long as they know, then they're good to go. And then again, the other piece of that, to Molly's question, is really that retail, you know, locations have shut down. Everybody's obviously moving more towards the e-com model. But now coming back into 2022, we've got a lot of people going back to some retail locations and the mixed model again. So we're starting to go back to a little bit of a mixed model, back to the, you know, the omni-channel, back to, you know, we're opening up some more POS and some e-com mix and some more wholesale presence. And so that adds a little bit of a layer of complexity as well. So as we start thinking about that, it's very important to have these tech stack approaches for the customer feedback loop again.
Sure. And have you got some, or can you think of any? Well, I'm sure you've got heaps of good examples, but how does implementing something like Skubana and kind of at what stage would you do it? But how does implementing something like Skubana help merchants make sure that they are giving the best information possible to their customers across, especially as you said, you've got multi-channel, omni-channel, we're going back into, you know, high street or shopping center retail. How can Skubana use that information and make sure that transparent information is available to everybody throughout the organization, and use that to help build customer loyalty and retention?
Well, so kind of going back to that central source of truth for, you know, inventory management, forecasting, demand planning, things like that. You know, if they know, you know, their inventory, you know, just like all in one place, then there's like, you know, just more transparency inside the organization so that they can stay lean, they can stay agile, and then they can, you know, make good decisions within the business so that, you know, whatever needs to be done as far as, you know, as far as like expanding their presence, and then they're good to go. But they're going to be able to accurately meet the needs of the customer better because they have that single source of truth. So as far as implementing a solution, I've seen over the years just people waiting way too long, and then there's problems. So it's a much harder situation to implement a solution when you have problems versus when you don't. So I'm always of the school of thought, if you're going to start a business and you need a solution in place, get the one that's going to scale with you, because replatforming is way harder and way more expensive than just getting the solution that's going to scale with you. I've seen it happen too many times. And I've also seen situations where people will get a solution that's way too robust for them and they never go live. So it's always just hard to have like the right solution that's going to scale, stick with you for a while, and then, maybe you scale beyond that, but you have to just kind of make a really good choice for what exactly fits your needs at the time that's appropriate. But I would say the sooner the better to get a solution in place.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because the amount of, especially in the last couple of years, and it can be a bit of a double-edged sword too. We've seen some merchants have surprising explosive growth. Some product. I hope it happens to anybody who's listening who's a merchant. I hope it happens to you next week. That you have that product or that experience that goes viral. But it just takes one influencer or one great piece of PR or something like that, and suddenly the product is it's the hot ticket. Everybody wants it. And when your tech stack and your automations don't scale with that kind of demand, mixed with, as you were mentioning, things like understanding what you're being able to forecast some of that demand, being able to understand how much product you have available at any one time. You don't also want to be getting a sudden huge demand swell for product that you might not have in your pipeline, or that you might only be able to facilitate a little bit of time. So do you think it does make sense then to, when I'm looking at my own business and trying to decide on where I can automate, where I can make improvements with my order fulfillment and in my tech stack, what should I be looking at? Should I be looking at kind of like my busiest periods times 10 or like something like that?
Yeah, that's a good thing to think about. I think there's lots of ways to look at it. I think it's kind of like, what is the future plan for the business? What do you hope to be at year 2? I mean, even where do you want to be in 6 months from now? But e-commerce is weird. I mean, I've seen businesses like in 30 days hit a boom that they weren't expecting and they weren't prepared. So it's just I think if you have a business in e-commerce, you need a solution. I mean, that's just my 100% opinion on it. And most of these solutions, like even Skubana, it's not cost prohibitive. It really isn't for a business that's going to go multi-channel and multi-fulfillment strategy, even multi-channel. It's really not cost prohibitive to get in place. But there's lots of great solutions out there. And the great thing about our industry is that most of the great people in our industry will recommend another solution. So if you come to a sales rep, we're really consultative and we take that approach. And so it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you know what? I don't think this is the right one for you. Let's walk through a process. Let's talk about what you need. And it might not be this particular solution, but there's lots of great solutions out there that might hit a price point that would help them scale in that direction. So that being said, there's always going to be something that fits the need.
Yeah, and you really, I mean, we hear that for solutions, not just in order fulfillment, stock management, ERP, that kind of thing. It's kind of everything to do with your own business. Knowing your own business really well is so key to this, and working with any agency, app, whatever, they should help you learn a little bit more about your own business and a little bit more about your customers in order to help you pick the right solution. On that note, then, about thinking about your own business or thinking about your own processes, who in the business or who in my business should take responsibility for how we best fulfill orders, how we best work with our customer base so that they understand what information is available and how to keep them loyal?
I'm sorry. Could you clarify that question?
Sure, yeah. So who's the best people, or who in my business should be looking after how we best fulfill orders? Like, who should take responsibility for order fulfillment within my business?
Like in the brand business, you mean?
No, I mean as a merchant, for example. So obviously there is like the operations fulfillment side, but there is more to the communication of that information to the customer and to the market. There's kind of, to me at least, it seems like there's a bit of mixed responsibility. There's obviously the executional work, and you're working with couriers and third-party logistics and all that kind of stuff, and your tech stack might be doing some of the work. But if, let's say, something doesn't go as perfectly well with an order, whose responsibility is it then to work that through with the client or the customer, or fix that issue if there is one?
I guess, I deal with so many different types of businesses, from pre-launch all the way to, really large groups of, groups. So I think that it just depends on the brand or the business, right? So it could be the CEO that's dealing with that. It could be client services, but I think it just depends on the structure of the business. But I guess to the point at that, when you're dealing with clients, I think that everybody needs to take responsibility, and whatever it takes to make sure that client is satisfied, that's what it takes to make sure that client's satisfied. That would be like the best answer on that one.
No, I like that a lot. The responsibility falls to everybody who has a touch point or who has responsibility to help fulfill that order and fulfill that brand experience as well. And this is what you were saying before around having really good data across all of your channels and having that single point of truth. Because if you have somebody who's on your online chat talking to a customer who has a concern, or somebody else who calls or hits you up on social media, that's probably all 3 or 4 different people, right? So one of them is going to be customer service, one might be managing, it might just be the chief marketing officer who's had a message on Twitter or on Instagram, for example. You need those people to be able to go and get the right information right away too. I have another question here. Someone's a bit nervous about expanding the market that they sell to. Do you have any recommendations? Does Skubana have any recommendations on how to think about expansion and what kind of roadblocks or traps they should be watching out for when they're expanding?
Definitely, again, back to having a tool in place. And yeah, I think, a lot of times people think about doing this in phased approaches, but again, I go back to always just having the proper tools in place. So like, as you think about like, when if you don't, you have, these booms on like Amazon, or you go to a marketplace and you didn't have something in place. But, with things like, having an inventory management tool in place and having the proper demand and planning strategy behind you, you're putting yourself in a really good place for that expansion. So, you can have things like buffers to the channels and, protection from oversells and out of stocks and things like that. And just strategies behind you. But I also think it's really important to have a good team behind you, because we have, it's not just about having the tools in place. It's having a good client services team behind you with those tools in place. And a lot of times there are solutions that are really great solutions that don't have good customer service. That's very important. In fact, I just went through this with my mother. She was implementing a new solution for her business, and the client services team was not that great. So I was having to help her, and I was like, I don't even know this tool, but I was like, I pride our team in having great client services, because when my clients that I, walk through the process of coming on to Skubana, they go into this amazing onboarding experience, and I'm very happy because the feedback loop is so good. But if you don't have that, when you go live with a new strategy and you don't have the support of the team behind you for questions on, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea, or how do I plan for this, that's a little troublesome. So
Yeah,
that would be
course.
my suggestion too.
Yeah, so making sure that the people who have the tools are empowered to use them, but also making sure that the people who are using them are as trained up and as positive and as bought into the brand and know what good customer service or good experiences look like. I mean, you touched on Skubana's onboarding there. I'd love to know a little bit more. Is there anything you could tell me more about that onboarding experience and what makes it, how does Skubana onboard their merchants? Because it's complicated. It's a complicated, so not to say Skubana is a complicated solution, but it can sometimes be, I'm sure, to some merchants, a part of their business that they either don't know a lot about or doesn't come naturally to them. So could you tell me a little bit about how Skubana helps new businesses onboard Skubana itself?
Sure. So we have a really thorough evaluation process. Right. So during the sales cycle, we will evaluate Skubana with them in a very consultative approach. So it's more or less kind of walking the client through that evaluation process, right? Because we don't know if it's going to work either, and we don't take the approach that we do. So so basically, it's kind of going through a demo, but then also like a workflow review to get them to the point where, if it makes sense, then we move forward. But after that workflow review, excuse me, then the notes that have been taken from all the stages of evaluation, as long as that might take, will be handed off to their implementation manager. And then the implementation manager will create a plan for them moving forward. And that being said, implementation with Skubana is about 4 to 6 weeks. Could take a little bit longer, but it's really not that extensive of a time frame in terms of software. So
yeah.
But as far as, I mean, 4 to 6 weeks, I've seen things go for other solutions like way longer. But our team is pretty diligent in terms of trying to kind of keep it condensed, but also really thorough. But then after implementation, they have account management following them along to make sure that they have a point of contact with client services. And we're always, really tweaking that process to make sure that our clients are very, very well attended to, because, it's important in this industry to have a point of contact. It's important to have, someone that you can call. So we have really good customer service in terms of email, chat, and phone support. But then, that point of contact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always impressed in anything if I can assess a problem and be able to make a change in a quarter or less. There's no reason to not go and do that. Then you mentioned actually at the start of the call, or in the middle of this session, actually, the customers moving back into offline channels again, and merchants probably having to, some merchants, it might be the first time that they might have started online and now they're thinking about offline. Have you got any tips for how merchants can connect their online and offline experience together and make sure it's really good for customers?
Yeah, I think, for majorly just having a good point of sale that connects, if they want to share the inventory, right? But I think like in this day and age, like you're gonna have to, because of the supply chain. So making sure your inventory management is talking well with your point of sale system, and everything is kind of like communicating well and getting a good strategy in place, because I think sometimes people don't realize that has to communicate and needs to be structured well. Sometimes people don't want like maybe the point of sale to communicate to their inventory management solution, and they want it to communicate in a certain way that maybe wouldn't be recommended by like a best practice, right? So I think when teams are recommending best practices, I think people need to be a little bit more cognizant or like aware and listen to those recommendations so that it can kind of flow a little bit better.
Sure. Well, I mean, you mentioned good strategy. I mean, I'm the same. I love a good strategy. But as we said, we were saying before about that shared responsibility of a good, pre, during, and post purchase experience. Who would, let's say, just a mid-sized business, where should that strategy be coming from? Should it be coming cross-departmental, or might it just be, should an e-commerce manager be looking after it, or do you expect should it be a real cross-team effort on these kinds of offline online strategies?
I think it probably should be a cross-team effort. I think that, having some input from the team is always great to have. Now, people can dive in and out of the conversations, throw their input in, and have maybe like a main evaluator. That's always a great way to go. But that way they can pull all the information together, and then we can, create a statement of work from there. But it's always helpful to have a lot of input, but have that one key player that's pulling it all together.
Yeah. No, I agree. You've got to have that someone who's going to be like, all right, we need to make a decision here, or we need some consensus, have that consensus builder. Last month, as we just got a message saying that it's almost time to go back to the main stage. So we're running out of time, and we're working through some of these questions. It's been really, really, really good. I wanted to maybe finish on the joining up of Skubana and LoyaltyLion. Me quite interested in the loyalty side of things. But could you give us a summary of how you see Skubana increasing customer loyalty and retention?
I think just accuracy of information, the more, again, going back to data integrity, being agile, and, as long as you have, what you need to be on point with the business and have that data source of truth, the better off you're going to be able to serve your customers and keep them happy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's, as we said right at the beginning, as long as customers know what's happening, or you're enabling your staff to be able to communicate that to your customers, prospective, new, returning, whatever it is, then I'm sure that they'll be able to make better decisions and feel they're working with a nice, honest, genuine brand, right? Is there anything else you had on your mind? We've been talking about opt-out, first-party data, those kinds of things. Is there anything that you'd like to touch on, or let the listeners, audience, attendees, people who might be watching this in the future on a recording, what kind of stuff is on your mind recently?
I think I would just like to say, I think it's been amazing watching through the last couple of years how brands have been able to utilize this opportunity to continue to just service their customers, right? Like, because e-commerce has just been amazing in this transition with all that's been going on. So just taking that opportunity to be in the industry that we are in, and really be able to continue to do what we do. It's been really awesome to help clients expand their brands and do it well. We're just lucky to be in this business.
Yeah, I love that. And a nice positive message almost to finish on, right? That it's an innovative space that's moving quickly. We can learn new stuff every day. That's really good. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with about Skubana? Maybe how, what kinds of challenges people might be coming up against that would give them reason to come and have a chat to you, and how they can get the best ways to get in touch with you as well?
Sure, absolutely. So if I mean, if there's any kind of issues with inventory management, demand planning or forecasting, connectivity to different warehouses, anything like that, give us a call. And simple as that, Shannon@skubana.com is my email, and feel free to contact.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. And thank you, everybody, for jumping in this breakout session. I hope you all hang around, jump back to the main stage for our next session, which our next panel, actually, which is going to be really, really awesome. Connecting to Convert, I think, is next. I'm just jumping around my own screen trying to find it. So have a lovely rest of the day, everybody. Shannon, I hope you have a chance to catch some more panels soon. And we'll speak to you again really soon.
Thanks, Zachary.
Cheers. Bye.